According to the official Communist Party of China narrative, in May 1935, during the Long March, the Communist Red Army was being pursued by the Nationalist Army across Sichuan province. Running low on supplies and manpower and nearly trapped, the Red Army had to cross the Dadu River to escape. The only way across the Dadu River was across a narrow suspension bridge, approximately 100 meters long, held up by 13 rows of chains. The wooden planks which had been previously laid on the suspension of the structure to allow people to walk on had been torn out. And on the other end of the bridge was an entire regiment of nationalist troops dug in with mortars and machine guns defending the area. In the subsequent battle, the communists gathered a team of 22 men led by political officer Yang Chengwu, who braved machine gun and mortar fire, climbed onto the suspension of the bridge, repaired the structure, and allowed for the rest of the Red Army to charge across and defeat the nationalist defenders on the other side of the riverbank. This was the legendary claim made by the Chinese communists, which has since been turned into artwork, movies, and literature. However, upon further examination of the details, there are growing suspicions that this Battle of the Luding Bridge might have been completely falsified or greatly exaggerated. At the very least, this battle was not as dramatic as what the communists made it out to be. First, let us examine the narrative of the communists that 22 Red Army soldiers braved machine gun and mortar fire while dangling on the suspension of a bridge in the open, approximately 50 to 100 meters from the nationalist mortar and machine gun positions. According to the political commissar, Yang Chengwu, who led the 22-man team, he wrote that no Red Army soldier died on the bridge. This of course makes no logical sense. How is it possible that 22 men were dangling on a swinging chain bridge in the open, fully exposed with no cover or concealment, while taking machine gun and mortar fire, and none of them were killed or wounded in this action? That is just extremely unlikely, bordering on impossible if the conditions were as described. So what was more likely the reality? Well, the reality was more likely that the nationalist troops defending the other side of the bridge had no machine guns and they had no mortars as described by the communists during this battle. The nationalist soldiers who participated in this Battle of the Luding Bridge were not professional regular troops from the Nationalist Central Army, but rather they were soldiers from the Sichuan Provincial Army, more specifically the 3rd Battalion, 38th Regiment, 4th Brigade of the 24th Sichuan Army. These were local troops loyal to the regional warlord, General Liu Wenhui. The Sichuan area, being landlocked and mountainous, was one of the most isolated and poorest regions of China, and the Sichuan army was one of the most backwards armies of China at the time. Industries in Sichuan could not produce high-quality firearms, much less machine guns. Most likely, such a small unit from a third-rate army in rural China at the time did not have access to mortars and machine guns in large numbers or quality. In fact, according to the book The Bitter Peace Conflict in China 1928-1937 by Philip Zhao, which describes an earlier conflict fought in Sichuan between General Liu Wenhui and another warlord, Liu Xiang, 3 years prior to the Long March in 1932, it was written that Sichuan armies of this period did not possess much weaponry beyond rifles, with mountain guns and machine guns being an oddity on the battlefield. Because Sichuan is a landlocked province, foreign weapons from Europe and from the United States were difficult to import without being intercepted by rival Chinese warlords from other parts of China, which the shipment would have to transit through. So Sichuan had to produce their own weapons. Steel manufacturing in Sichuan at the time were of very poor quality and at low pressure resistance. The Sichuan arsenals attempted to reproduce copies of the German Mauser series, but because of poor workmanship, the rifling on the rifles would oftentimes wear down after a couple of shots and were prone to malfunction. According to Wang Jingyu, who was the chief of staff of the 24th Sichuan Army, during the campaign to chase the Red Army across Sichuan province, the Sichuan Army's numbers were officially at 20,000 troops, but in reality, 1/3 of the troops had malfunctioning rifles and could not really fight, and they were just used to intimidate local civilians and the local populace. So in conclusion, the nationalist troops from the Sichuan Army defending the Luding Bridge from the communists couldn't have possibly achieved the intense firepower as portrayed in books, artwork, movies, and TV shows that the Chinese communists like to always put in the propaganda. The idea that the Communist Red Army faced dozens of mortars and dozens of machine guns as they were trying to cross this chain-link bridge is all falsified and most likely a huge exaggeration to prop up this founding myth of the People's Liberation Army. It's all fake. It's all fake. The bridge was poorly defended, and the army that the Red Army had to go up against, the Sichuan army, was third rate or fourth rate. Nothing that could have put up much of a resistance.